Hey everybody, Rodney here with a Challenger challenge for you as I commute back and forth to work in my Dodge Challenger. So I want to talk today about relationships and how boundaries affect those relationships. There's kind of like two types of people. Someone who has very strict boundaries, very strict yes and no's, and they kind of keep people at arm's length and that sort of thing. There's other types of people that don't have any boundaries, and they might be people pleasers. They might try to please everybody no matter who they are or kind of what impact they have on your life. A good way to look at relationships is through concentric circles. So you have your innermost circle, that would be your family at home, spouse, kids, that sort of thing. Then the next circle out would be like extended family members, moms, dads, sisters, brothers, that sort of thing. Maybe best friend might fit into that category. Then you have the next circle out, who might be friends that you hang out with maybe on the weekends or that sort of thing. And then of course you go further out to acquaintances and co-workers, maybe fellow students, things like that if you're in school or whatever. So depending on kind of where they fall on that concentric circle, how close they are to your life would then determine what your boundaries are with that relationship. And you want to be careful with this because you don't want to not have a boundary with someone on an outer concentric circle that's going to affect the inner, if that makes sense. We have to prioritize the inner before the outer, if that makes sense. And I'm driving, so I can't write it on a whiteboard for you, but hopefully you can use your imagination. I find that people do tend to want to be maybe people pleasers, and they will not enforce boundaries with those outer or even those inner circles. I've seen people get upset at maybe someone at work, like a coworker. They're not really that friend, they're not really friends, maybe kind of acquaintances. So they'd be on kind of one of the outer circles of relationship. And what they'll do is something will happen at work, and maybe there's a breakdown in relationship. And then they'll carry that burden or carry that emotional baggage or whatever you want to call it home, and it affects the inner circle. If you're having something going on with an outer circle relationship that's directly affecting an inner circle relationship, you're not appropriately enforcing your boundaries. I've heard a long time ago in one of my counseling classes when I was getting my degrees, and it just really stuck with me, he who angers you controls you. So I remember when I was younger, in my 20s, something would happen at work and it would just bristle me. I'd be frustrated emotionally. Well, then I would carry that frustration home with me. I'd have that frustration in the car. I'd have that frustration when I got home. And then I am acting differently around my family, my wife, my kids. And it was really that person on the outer circle. I was allowing what they did to control me now when I'm at home. And they've never even been in my home. They've never even met my family. So really what happens is if we don't enforce boundaries, and a good way to know if you enforce boundaries or not is if you're able to say the word no. I know there's people that I care about. It seems like they just can't say the word no, or they can't say that's far enough, or no, that's not okay, or no, I'm not going to take that call at 7 o'clock when I'm supposed to be with my family, or whatever it is. They have a hard time saying no, and I think it may be a fear or just the issue that they have when it comes to upsetting people. If you're not willing to risk upsetting people on the outer circles, the outer concentric circles of your relationships, for the sake of your inner relationships, spouse, kids, that sort of thing, those that are in your home, you're not enforcing, or maybe you don't even know what they are, what proper boundaries are in your life. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your kids, you owe it to your spouse to enforce proper boundaries with people on circles outside of their circle. Now that also means you do have some boundaries with the inner circle people, but it doesn't mean that it's the same as the outer circle people. Inner circle people, you should have fewer boundaries. You're there as part of the family. You give yourself to your family. As a man, for example, I serve my family. I sacrifice things that I might want to do, or things that I personally desire for the sake of my family. But I'm not going to do that with an outer circle person. It's just not what's going to happen. But an inner circle person, I would have fewer boundaries. Doesn't mean you can't have like me time once in a while, that sort of thing. But proper boundaries really will cause you to have your priorities straight, I guess, when it comes to your relationships. And looking at all your relationships and kind of categorizing them in those concentric circles, I think would really help. I've done that often. I've done that. I'm saying, okay, who are my inner people? And we know that quickly. We can name them off. Those that are in our house, spouses if you're married, kids if they're in the house, that sort of thing. Those are your primary people. And those that are on the outer circles, they should not affect you as far as how you interact with those inner circle people. Friends should never come before family, for example. That's something that I've taught my kids, because we like our friends, and sometimes, especially when you're kids, teenagers, you may prefer your friends over your family. Well, that's just a boundary that we've had in our house forever, that friends do not come before family. Doesn't mean they can't ever spend time with their friends. Of course they can. Do sleepovers and that sort of thing. Spend time on the phone with them, or online games or whatever. That's fine. But when it's dinner time, for example, it's time to say, all right, friends, for a little while, I'm not going to be online, or I'm going to hang up the phone, or whatever it is, and I'm going to spend this amount of time, whatever it is, with my family. Could be dinner, could be a vacation, could be going out to eat somewhere, whatever it may be, going to church, whatever. Prioritizing your relationships, who's on your inner circle, and then moving out is a good way to look at relationships. And sometimes it can be hard, because whether we like it or not, our extended family, and once we become adults, our extended family is our moms, our dads, our brothers, sisters, and they're part of our family. And they've been in our lives, so to speak, longer than our kids have. But our moms, dads, brothers, sisters, that extended family, and then of course it even goes out further than that with, uncles and aunts and cousins, that may not live around you or whatever. But even moms and dads, once we become adults, they move from that inner circle to that next circle out. And it may be hard sometimes, but even that second circle is second priority when it comes to our spouse and our kids. They are our inner circle. They are the ones that we have to prioritize as number one. And sometimes that means we have to say, no, Mom, I can't do this thing. Or, no, Dad, you can't do this thing right now. I'm focused on my family for that time. Doesn't mean you don't make time for the other circles. It just means the priority starts on that inner circle. And I tell you what, if that inner circle is healthy, the rest of the circles will be more healthy. If that inner circle is not healthy, the rest of the circles won't be healthy either. But if an outer circle is unhealthy, if you had to say no to an acquaintance, someone at a coworker, someone at work or whatever, and they're mad at you, so that outer circle is unhealthy, you can still have healthy inner circles. The outer will not affect the inner as much, or maybe not even at all, if you're doing your boundaries right. But if that inner circle is unhealthy, if your home is unhealthy, the rest of the circles can't be healthy either. So prioritize your relationships, prioritize and categorize them, and realize who's on your inner circle and who isn't, and realize what boundaries you need to put in place for the sake of yourself and the sake of those that are on your inner circles. And I tell you what, you do that, if you've never done that, it'll be really hard at first, because those outer circle people, they're going to say, well, what's wrong? What happened? What did I do? Or what's wrong with you? Or why can't you spend the weekend with me? You always spend the weekend with me, or whatever. It'll be hard at first, but if you hold your boundaries, and if you hold them for a little bit of time, give some consistency, those people on the outer circles, even that second circle, they realize, oh, okay, wait a minute. I understand now what they're doing. I understand what the boundaries are, and now it's up to me if I'm going to cross them or not. But as you, as the person, as that central person, to prioritize your family, kids, spouse, who's ever on your inner circle, who's in your home, you're going to have to say no and be okay with them being upset at you sometimes. Give it some time, be consistent in it, don't bend or break on those boundaries, and they will come around. And give it some time, and they will even potentially even make their own boundaries for their own family, and not only yourself, but they too will be healthier as well. So that's what I'd like to say about those circles. It's how I've gone through life. I've gone through my relationships, and it's really helped me prioritize my family and put my kids, my spouse, that sort of thing, as number one, and they know it. They know it that dad sees them as number one. I'm not going to sacrifice them for a friend or an acquaintance or whatever. So it's made my inner circle as healthy as it can be, and that perpetuates out to my other circles. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.